How many of you have lived here less than 10 years? And 20 years? So whether you were born here or choose to live here, we are all Team Cocoa and welcome. Now, whether you have kids that are going to school, whether you went to school here, whatever your relationship is with this school, I can tell you that this school is extremely important to our future and our economic development as well. It is a pillar for which we can attract new residents and businesses. And of course, our teachers are really important people. And as you know, our mayor is a teacher at Cocoa High School and has been here for quite a while. And since this is your house, I'd like to ask you up here. Well, it's actually.
I need my dog, my councilman calls. That's the head tiger right there. Thank you, ma'am. I don't need a microphone. You know I don't.
Okay, just lead us in prayer.
Thank you very much.
And then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. Let's give Councilwoman Cost a round of applause. I will be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my supervisor. I'm glad to say Team Cocoa. Also, the principal head tiger, he himself, Principal Rashad Wilson. Would you please stand? Recognize. Come on, yeah. And even as his mother's here, I'm not going to introduce the council, but everyone, we work together because teamwork is dream work. And we're in the right place for the right cause and the right reason. So if you would mind bow our heads, please, ma'am, please, sirs. We come to you as humble servants, asking that each and everything we do tonight is be a blessing upon our community. It be blessed by the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior, but more so than anything else, Lord, we ask that we come together because there's power in numbers and you bless us all. Even though we come from different tribes, we belong to one race. That's the human race. And Heavenly Father, you made this possible. So I ask you that we all work under one accord in your sweet son named Jesus. And everybody said amen. Amen. And amen again. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind standing and facing the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let me also introduce the rest of council. We have Deputy Mayor Goins over here, if you wouldn't mind standing. Councilman Evander Hearn from District 2. Councilman Rick Dial from District 3. And we have, I think at this point, I will introduce Stockton Witten, our city manager. And I was going to ask you to introduce the staff that are here tonight.
All right, let's see if I can do this. Thank you. I think I got them all there. To my right here is Carrie Sheely, she's the clerk. Charlie Nuderman, Angela Epstein is economic development. Ryan Smith is public works. Chief Evander Collier and staff. I saw Jack Walsh, who is the utilities director. And last but not least, Samantha Singer, who's the public information officer. I think that's it.
Okay, we're going to be hearing from numerous staff tonight, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody got introduced. And now, our principal, we are in his house, and I just wanted to introduce you as our host tonight, but also, as I mentioned, the school is so fundamental to our development. you could just share with us some of the highlights of what's going on at Cocoa High School.
Yay!
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, my name is Rashad Wilson, again, the proud principal of Cocoa High School.
Yes, sir.
Just to give you a little background, I became principal at Cocoa High January 2017. At that time, we have accomplished, since that time, we have accomplished quite a bit. I'm gonna start with the course. I'm sure all of you know that we were invited to New York City to perform at
Oh, Carnegie Hall?
Carnegie Hall. That was one of our co-curricular highlights. Our academic highlights, since I've been principal here, we've had the highest dual enrollment number of graduates in the history of the school. Since I've been principal here, we've had the highest number of CTE graduates in the school. CTE stands for Career Technical Education. Since I've been here as principal, we've had the most honor grads that we have at the school. And so I say all that because I take academics serious. For those of you that know my mother, I didn't have a choice. And, she still gets on me now. I'm like, hey, lady, hold up, time out. I'm wrong now. But she said, don't get it twisted, son. Nothing's changed. But that's been my attitude towards empowering my teachers to empower the young people. The future is academics. With it, without it, life is difficult. It's tough enough as it is with it. And it takes a village. It takes everybody, not just the people at home, because as we all know, some homes aren't what they should be. Not because they don't want it to be, just because of life circumstances. And we try to wrap our arms around our kiddos day in and day out. Some embrace it, some don't, but we still embrace our kiddos and expect nothing but the best, have high expectations. We're not perfect. We have our issues, but I think everyone in here could agree that that's life, but we keep plugging away. We keep plugging away until we get the results that we're trying to get. And as you know, I'm not going to talk too much about the pandemic, but the pandemic really kind of hurt our population. It hurt us in a variety of ways. Student enrollment has decreased. Students just vanished. I mean, literally vanished, like moved out of state. And that happened all throughout the district, as well as the country. So we're still trying to play catch up. We're still dealing with the pandemic, but every day is a new day. Every day is a fresh start. And all we ask is strive for excellence in everything we do. Strive for excellence in everything we do. And we try to create an environment of excellence. And I'm proud, again, the proud principal of Cocoa High School. And thank you for this opportunity. And you guys are welcome to use this facility anytime it's available. Now, stay away from testing season, but other than that, we're good to go. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. I also want to point out that Deputy Fire Chief Bird is here. He didn't get introduced, he got missed. We have a couple other folks too, because I see that Michael Kadori is here, councilman from Rockledge, as well as Eastern Florida State College representative. Did you want to give us any update on Eastern Florida, or just wait, hold on? Okay. Okay, great. So, my idea, and I had some great slides to go with it, was to talk to you about planning and development, because there is a lot going on in Cocoa. And I'm sorry that I don't have the maps to share with you on the big screen. So I'm going to rely some on staff to give me some. Michelle Lee, is she here? Yes. Our community development director. First of all, before I do that, The census was completed last year, and we're gonna be doing redistricting. So keep that on your radar screen. It looks like we have had some shifting of population in Cocoa. We actually lost people in District 4 and District 1. We have a lot of new people moving into District 3. So, and we're under consent decree, so we're are going to shift the districts slightly. So, I think most of you will still be with me, but if you end up moving to District 2, I want you to know that Councilman Hearns is quite capable and will be a great representative for you. And that'll be coming up probably in January or a little later in the year. So there is a lot, yes.
How does that happen? How do you decide who gets it?
At the last council meeting, we appointed a committee.
Okay.
They will meet, they have 120 days to come up with a plan. And so each councilman appointed someone.
Is it based on the structures within the changes, or is it based on residents' population?
It's based on the population. It's also based on, they have to be contiguous. So, we have quite a pocketed map, if you're familiar with it. We have, it kind of looks like a jigsaw puzzle. We have so many unincorporated areas mixed in with the incorporated. That's a challenge in governing. But in the case of, at least for the redistricting, like I said, we'll hear more about that probably in the January, February timeframe. We have a lot of economic growth going on. I mean, you see it everywhere, right? How many of you have written down 524 and see all the development going on there? That is the Integra development. We have the Cirrus going up right over there where the shopping center across from Publix. There are plans on the books for off of US 1 to fill in some of those areas. We have Amazon coming. So there is a lot of growth coming on, and probably now in the range of, 2,000 units coming on board. In fact, Charlene, could you give us kind of an overview just in terms of the larger residential areas and the numbers that go along with those? Oh, it's just not good enough for.
I wish I could have made copies for everybody.
Yeah, and this is the one we're going to display too.
So like Councilwoman Cost has noted, there's a lot of development here in the city of Cocoa that we have started over the last few years. And as she noted, the majority of the development is along the 524 corridor, along US 1 and 520. You've noticed on 520, we have the Cocoa Grand Apartments that are in full swing right now of construction and are expected to be completed sometime in the spring of 2022. And we're looking forward to those apartments. And then we have Cirrus, like she said, which is the old Winn-Dixie Park shopping center at the 524 and Industry Road. And I think if you've driven by there in the last couple of days, the building has come down completely. So construction will begin very soon with that. We also have some other apartments that are going up right next to where the fire station is on 524, the Integra apartment complex. So like she noted, there's about 2,200 units that are going to be built here in the city of Cocoa over the next couple of years between single family and multifamily residential homes. And that's a boom based on what the space program is bringing in to us. With all of the activity with the space program, people need a place to live. And Cocoa is one of the few areas now that still have some property, and we're right here centrally located. We have Cocoa Village, we have the port, we have Kennedy Space Center, everything is right here. So it is not only a great residential community for people to move here to Cocoa, but it's also an area for economic development, economic growth that we're looking forward to bringing that, which is why Amazon is coming in to the city. And that will spur some other spin-off companies that will come into the city. And and I don't want to steal Angela's thunder on economic development, so she'll come up here later and talk about that. But we have a lot of economic development, and we have a lot of residential growth here in the city of Cocoa. We're excited about bringing all of these different opportunities for the community to grow and for city of Cocoa to grow. Yes.
I'm just wondering how many of the incoming housing units are affordable that people who are like making our median household income could afford to live in them?
Many of the apartments that are coming into Cocoa will have affordable units that are available for those who are teachers, firefighters, police officers, those types of individuals who are in that income area that you're looking for. That's what they're going to cater to. Cocoa Grand is one who is focusing on providing that opportunity for those people who are the workers here in the city. And hopefully a lot of city employees will focus on living in those areas. I saw her hand first.
Is that going to be still in our district, or are we going to wait and find out if that's going to be in different districts also, or how's that going to work?
So a lot of the new growth that we have coming in right now with all of the development will not be included as part of the new redistricting, because we have to go on what's on the 2020 census, which is what we just received from last year, and none of those numbers, we don't have actual population. So the 2020 census will define what our redistricting is going to look like. And she talked a little bit about that, but it's basically we have 4 districts, and we have to have within 5% numbers of variation. So if we have a population of around 20,000 people, those 4 districts are going to be around 5,000 each. And so those are the numbers. And so we have to tweak the areas based on what the census is showing us and where the growth is and where we're going to move. Now, obviously, in 2030, when we do the next census, we're going to see a very large growth from what we have. Yes, we hope, absolutely. I'll go with you,
Is there also a housing development going in at the north end of Friday Road, northwest corner of Friday and James?
Yes.
I read a few things about that.
Yes, there is.
How
That's
many units are going in?
about 414 units. Yes.
Can you address what's being done on 524 and what the city's doing to expedite the improvements on 524?
I'm going to leave that up to Brian Smith, our Public Works Director, to kind of answer some of that with what they're working on.
State Road 524 is on the TPO's long range plan. They're completing the PD&E study, which is just conceptual plans, trying to figure out some of the environmental constraints now. From there, it'll depend on funding, but you would move towards design right away and then potential construction. We've been talking with DOT to try to see what we can do to move the projects up in the timeline. Right now, they're slated probably about 10 to 15 years out for actual construction. So we're trying to see what we can do to push that forward.
But the original planning and stuff that went into that didn't account for a lot of the changes that you guys have authorized and enabled over just the last few years alone. So is there not a recourse to go back and get them to reprioritize that within their funding?
They reprioritize every year as part of the TIP program, but all the projects that have been approved, the roadway still operates at an acceptable level of service. It's when you exceed that, that's where you run into the issue with future development.
But as soon as you open up those new apartment complexes, and with especially the issues that Walmart's distribution center has caused traffic-wise on 524, we're going to exceed any capability that really is there.
All the current projects, so if they generate more than 300 trips, they're required to submit a transportation study. So it shows their impacts and it projects their impacts out a couple of years as well. So it shows that the roadway does operate at the level of service that it should, even with all the apartments being built, as well as the Walmart center.
Okay,
And
that's hard to believe, I'm sorry.
It's going to be congested. It's going to be congested for a while, but I also wanted to say that, and I'm honored to sit on the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization governing board. So I will be pushing for that to move that up. If there is additional infrastructure dollars that come in from the federal government, of course, we know they're talking about that. there would be real opportunities there, and believe me, we will be right there, aggressively going for those dollars and in that particular section of town. That has the opportunity to be a very nice corridor for us if it's done correctly. And some of those plans, I don't know if you've had a chance to see those plans, but DOT has been out, yeah. So, but you bring up a good point, because yeah, we got a lot of growth. And so does Rockledge, and so does Melbourne, and the whole Space Coast. This is a good period for us. How do we want to grow is the question. Because economic development and raising the tax base is about more than just bringing in more, right? Because when I started to, question people about what they wanted to hear tonight, I thought I was just going to talk about economic development. But I keep hearing, what is the experience of living in Cocoa going to be like? And of course, there are people that moved here because it had more of that small town feel. So those are all things that we need to take into consideration. How do you do that? I think it's through planning. And this year, we are going to be going into strategic planning again. We've had a strategic plan 2016 to 2021. We're now going to re-enter into that. And this is the reason I'm so big on strategic planning. And I said this in the council meeting the other night. I don't care if I'm here or sitting in your seat. I want to live in a city that has a vision, that has a plan. So, strategic planning is more than just having a document that sits on the shelf. I really see three big things coming out of it. And we have been working on other plans over the last couple of years. We have a stormwater 10-year plan. We have the utility plan, of course. We have a sustainability resiliency plan. All of those need to be incorporated into that strategic plan. And the three things I really think we get out of it is we get that participation. We can actually start, because we all have a lot of different perspectives here. Some people would, love for this to be a high-rise city, and others not. And just a lot of different things that we'd like to see. But if we can unify around a vision, that is very helpful in just a second. And then the other thing is that once you have a plan in place, you have a way to evaluate your progress. So, so you actually know if you're hitting on the areas you need to in order to make progress. That's important. And then the third thing about having a plan is that vision, that plan can actually work to help market you. So when we're talking to these developers, when we're talking to these builders, you say, this is what our city wants to see. This is where we're going. These are the steps we're taking to get there. Cindy?
We have a lot of new construction coming on. I'm wondering if there's any governing body that is looking at sustainable building, renewable resources, native planting, so that we're not using our resources. 2030 is 9 years away. It's when we're looking at a water shortage. We're looking at increasing population, decreasing resources. Are we monitoring that as a city?
We have, we actually, and is Jennifer Riggs here? She is the chair of the sustainability committee. I don't think she made it yet. We have a sustainability plan that we actually adopted last year. Year before that, a resiliency plan that looks at all of our vulnerabilities. So, and we, with both of those, we identify goals and objectives. Now, incorporating that into our overall plan is what comes next. And then a lot of what you're referring to are things that go into future land planning and the comprehensive plan. So that work has taken place. I'm not satisfied with where we are. Sustainability is still really important to me. And we're going to continue working on that. And I hope that you'll be a part of that strategic planning process and interject that as well.
So in answer to, is there a governing body that's looking over the new construction, or are they using renewable resources and energy that doesn't exist right now? Or
I
they
would have
they
to say that as a part of our planning and zoning board, we'd be looking at that. I almost feel like no.
Sorry. So our planning and zoning board is our board that evaluates all development projects that come in through the city and make recommendations to each of the developers as they come in with their presentations. And yes, we do encourage sustainable development. We do encourage the use of Florida-friendly landscaping. We do encourage all of the environmental features in order to be environmentally friendly for every development. So that is something that we have written into the code. We have a resiliency part of our comp plan that was required through our requirement through the DEP. And so we had to make that a standard as part of development. So it is encouraged, and it is not mandated, but it is encouraged to bring that development in and bring in what is sustainable and to that whatever the development is. And so it's important. And like she said, sustainability is very important to the community. Sustainability is very important to the growth of the community. So it's important to continue with those features.
Charlotte, but is it required? I want to hear the part, is it required or it's just encouraged?
It is a recommendation, it is not a
So there's no
requirement.
requirements?
No.
No, we do have that low impact development as well.
Low impact development
I know
is-
that's mentioned several times,
Correct.
but not a requirement. So the planning and zoning would make recommendations, that would go to the city council. Yes,
In the construction of these new apartments, is there a height limitation that the city has? If they can only go like 2 stories, or 3 stories, or 4 stories, or does it take place depending on where it is?
it takes place depending on where it is.
that's
And we
better-
have maps that where specific zoning applies. So, I think in the village, in Cocoa Village right now, it's 4, 5 stories. 5 stories. And it really depends on where you are.
Well, it would be, I would think, not very beautiful type thing if you had a developer come in and build a 15-story building in a housing development.
Right, so you really need to take into account the whole neighborhood and how it fits into the whole neighborhood. And that would be addressed as those plans come in, and planning and zoning committee looks at that, planning and zoning board rather, looks at that, and then it progresses to the council.
You had
So-
already mentioned, I don't remember exactly your words, but that you didn't want a skyscraper type city or thing.
Right. Right. And that's one of the things we need to think about, right? Is what height do we want to go to? You know, and the other thing, in terms of talking about economic development, again, there are different facets to that. One of those is what kind of educational opportunities are available. We are driven to raise the tax base because we have a high percentage, 30% of our population living below the national poverty level. Part of raising the tax base allows us to raise all boats, invest in our community and our infrastructure and in those assets that make the experience living in Cocoa really worthwhile and attractive to people. Now, it's not that we've always had the goal of raising our tax base. We've had different approaches. Formerly, the former administration, I think, had more of a catalytic approach. Big projects, whether it be a Walmart, you know, or a big complex. And that required a lot of capital. That capital, so the former administration accumulated $8.8 million in assigned funds over the last 10 years. When our new city manager came in, he determined that we needed to invest that into the community because we have a lot of maintenance items, right, that were not addressed. So this year, and 8.8 million for us, that is more than we raise in ad valorem taxes in a year. So it's a significant number of dollars. Now, within that, there's 2.3 million that is spent on parks. And so a lot of what you're gonna see, a lot of what's gonna touch you is the investment in parks. We have 900 in Provost, which is, we're investing in that park. That has been in our strategic plan for the last 5 years. We're trying to, really, what's at the core of that is changing the image. The new chief, who you'll be speaking with a little later, has already started to clean some of that up. But putting top shelf new fields in there, we're hoping is going to provide that better asset to the city, as well as our reputation, making this a more attractive place to live. Yes?
I'm still stuck on all these new apartments going up.
Yep.
That's a lot of apartments.
Mm-hmm.
The average family has 2 to 6 kids around here.
Mm-hmm.
Do our schools have enough room to accommodate all these?
I think Charlene can probably address that too, but they do, that is one of the things that goes into the plans that they have to submit. We have to determine that the schools are going to be able to handle the population. Does that explain it, or?
Just about, yeah. But there's a school concurrency. We work with the school board when the developments come in to evaluate how it works with the capacities in each of the schools, and then that gives them an opportunity to evaluate future growth.
Okay. Another question?
Yeah, you talking about the parks, Brocco?
Yes.
I currently am the president of Stratfield right now, and I actually go to play on that field, and the same way the field look when I played, it looks right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we paved all the parking lots and everything.
And that is my concern as well. We also have, and I'll be there in a second. We also have improvements that we're putting bathrooms into Gilmore Park, into Carl Anderson Park. We have, I wanted to show you, got a Brocco Pond Park. I don't know how many of you are even familiar with that, but that is a great asset that runs parallel to US 1, just north of the wastewater station. It's a pond system, and for passive recreation, it's really an asset for us, and few people use it at this point. But we're looking at exercise stations around there. That I think was about 100,000. Then we're also doing the Junie Rios splash pad and pavilion at 700,000. There was no monies other than for signage and some of the theme things assigned to District 4. And Mo Stradley is in District 4. I was not at the meeting where that was budgeted. I was in a car accident on April 18th. I was in the hospital for one of the meetings, and I was not able to attend due to treatments I was getting for the other. I feel bad about that. I think that was a mistake. I think that it was a process mistake. We had commissioned, because we've been dreaming about this for a long time, improving our parks. We had commissioned a couple of years ago a park plan that had deficiencies. And so it had some deficiencies, maybe some good things, but we put it aside and just picked from a list. And I think,
I'm gonna cut you off, but I was just wondering, because we have at least almost 300 kids there for the past 3 years.
yes,
And the park is, like I said, one stall in the ladies' bathroom, one stall in the ladies' bathroom.
mhm,
So you got 300 kids on, if you go down there right now, it's 300 kids practicing, almost practicing children.
yeah.
And then on game days, over maybe 500 or 600 people,
Mhm.
one stall.
And that's a community asset, it's an athletic league, and what really bothers me is those kids playing Coco, kids from other neighborhoods, Bureau, whatever, don't want to come to Coco because our facilities aren't as good. And that certainly doesn't help our reputation either. I'm going to take her hand and then Sarah.
Well, on top of that.
It's Alicia, right?
Yes. You're talking about all of these new apartments, new home developments coming in. Coco didn't have a true athletic facility to take care of all the kids and families that will be coming into Coco. Stratford Park, plus a couple of the other parks, would be a perfect place. It is open, it has room to grow, and there's great improvements that could go into that if money's going to put forth for that. When you talk about 300 kids Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, plus on the weekends, Saturdays, game days, 400 or 500 kids with parents, the traffic is horrendous. The one-way in and out is horrendous. We had an emergency our first year, the fire truck got stuck in the back trying to get to a person that was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be somebody somewhere. I've worked with the county before. I've done the budget before. There's a cushion. And if we have to go to traditional mowers or.
And we have that appointment next Monday. Is it next Monday or the week after? I think it's Monday. And he is going to meet us along with the city manager down at City Hall. So, I mean, I am still advocating, I am still pushing to find some money in this 2.3 that we spent that can be moved to this worthy park. And how many of you are familiar with Mo Stradley? Because it's right across the street here. It's the athletic field. This would be an opportunity for us. Yes. Wait, I got to get Sarah first.
This is kind of a connected question, but it's more procedural questions. I'm glad the city manager's here. Maybe he can comment on it too. But what would it take procedurally to go back into that 2.3 million and say, okay, D4 got nothing, so maybe it would be good to give D4 something, you know, and reallocate that money. I mean, we have not constructed those projects yet. So, you know, at this stage of time, what would it take procedurally to bring it back up and get some equity for the 300 kids that are at that park?
Does anybody want to respond to that? I would like to do that. I did not vote on it. So I can't, only someone that voted in the affirmative for it, a council member, could bring it back. Procedurally. Well, our councilmen aren't here, yes. But this has been a matter of contention. And just say right now, I don't want to spend the whole meeting on this. It's definitely, I think everybody gets it. This is a big issue. So what I'm going to suggest is that after this, we put this on the parking lot. We address this, and that goes for anything that we get into that's too sticky that we can't solve tonight. We put it on a list, parking lot list. And if we don't address it, if you don't receive a call or whatever, I am going to be at the Museum Pavilion on Saturday, November 13th at 1 o'clock. We'll discuss anything that's left out there hanging, okay? Okay.
I'll make it quick.
Kristen, yeah.
I'll make this very quick. I'm Mr. 3. We're about to get a splash pad I've never heard of, spending over $700,000 on a splash pad and a third pavilion that got discussed on April 26th. and I want to give our money to you. So I just want to say that, I'm in District 3. That we're wasting money in District 3 when we have 300 kids in District 3 or 4. So you got my vote for that, and I'll be there on that day, because this
Okay.
isn't right. And I don't know
Well-
how this came to be, but I'm with them.
Okay, and the other thing that has happened, that was a shame this year, is that you understand that it is a recreation parks district that for the most part manages our parks. I mean, we do some of that. In fact, we are hiring more people to supplement that. But we had Travis Park, which of course is our community center here, was actually downgraded to a low maintenance park. So they came in and they cut down all the landscape, so all they have to do is mow it. So it's kind of like, we didn't do too well on parks this year, and I hope people are listening and that changes. We also didn't do too well on the YMCA. They came to us with a request last year for $50,000 to keep operating, or the year before. We turned that down. Now we no longer have a pool, and I know that's a big issue to a number of people. Certainly is to me. I was supposed to go swimming as a part of my recovery efforts, and we currently at Eastern Florida, they of course, this is a burden for them. The YMCA building is beyond repair. But for the citizens of Cocoa and also for the Cocoa High School swim team, this is a real problem. So,
Can you succinctly tell us what happened with, is it no longer there? Is the YMCA no longer there?
the YMCA is no longer there. The YMCA has been investing in their other facilities in Titusville. And I think they have facilities in Vieira. And they decided, the YMCA being in Cocoa, being older, the pool having some issues, they decided to close it down. So, I feel like we didn't get a good shake from them either.
Ms. Cobb,
Yes.
I think we didn't get a fair shake because BCC had been a fair shake for us for 20 years. They abandoned Cocoa and moved everything to Melbourne. And now we got a campus over there that has minimal classes with minimal output for our community. Now that YMCA had asked them for $200,000 to improve that building. They agreed they do so, but then with the COVID occurring, they were able to maintain their finances to be able to fund that. So YMCA over in Orlando, which operated all of our county, made that decision. But it also goes back to Brevard Community College, Eastern Florida, Brevard JCC, whatever you want to call it this year, needs to step up and do something with that Cocoa campus instead of deserting it. It's ridiculous.
Meeting after coming into office was with Eastern Florida State College to figure out what was going on there, because it is central to this district in particular, and also it's very valuable to our city as the academic center. They have the burden of operating with less funds and trying to do more academically. However, I know the investments in other campuses pains me when we're not getting maintenance here. So we are continue to be in discussion with them, and they were kind enough to send representatives. So I think they care. We're on the radar screen. I'm told that even their president is pushing investment in the Cocoa campus, but I have no idea what the plans are now. The Provost Sibley I invited her to this meeting. She wasn't able to come. She did make it clear that they are developing a plan for the Cocoa campus and that she will be meeting with me as soon as they can talk about that. So, and I promise you, I hope you signed up for my newsletter, because I promise I'll get that out to you. Okay, now I completely derailed from Hi Wesley. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
I was saying that when I was a kid coming up, my dream used to be out of that area to go in and play baseball. large amount of crowds to fields out there with baseball. And I think if you do what you do in the Stratton Park, the Brocco's Park, and bring up the concession stands, beef them up a little bit, you got the transit area over there that you're not doing anything, get all that field over there. You can put a football field over there and do the same thing for us, drawing crowds. And maybe this side of the Cocoa, you play that side of the Cocoa along with Rockledge, and you can draw more money that way by doing other things.
And there's also, we heard at the last council meeting about the hub at Endeavor Elementary. There's a lot going on there as well. Okay, let's see.
We putting that on the parking lot, we putting that as first.
Yes, I think we will. In fact, I'll get somebody to do that for me in a minute. But at this point, I think we're on to, and I'm so sorry, I gave up this whole weekend, I was gonna go someplace, gave up the whole weekend to do these slides, and they are worthless. So I think next on our agenda, we were gonna talk about the conservation area, right? Okay. So, how many of you are familiar with Cocoa Conservation Area? I need to start tracking my time. Okay, good. That's all?
Let's keep it that way.
Okay. Well, I might drag you up here, Greg, to help me, but, the Cocoa Conservation Area in 2003, we had received a grant from Florida's Communities Trust to purchase this land. We have since expanded it. It's about, what, 300 acres now? It's just such a gem. There's a pavilion up there. There are some trailways through it. If you're a bird watcher, if you're into nature, you'll be really surprised you didn't even know about this in Cocoa.
Where?
But it is Cocoa Bay. Do you know that that development, Cocoa Bay, which is right across the street from here, actually, on Range Road, is Cocoa Bay Boulevard?
Just west of here.
Drive up, just west. Yes. So we have, and so we have a group of people that have been trying to popularize it more so that we don't lose it, so people can appreciate it. We are now on the annual Audubon tour, thanks to Greg Stoll. Thank you very much. We are also blazing trails for cross-country track with the vision of actually being able to host cross-country events. Again, the whole idea is bringing positive activities into our parks to keep out the riffraff. Rather than close them up, lock them up, let's make it a positive place to be and, you know, put in those safety measures and invite people to enjoy them, particularly at this period with COVID. I think we're, you know, ready to have those outdoor places. Now, Bach McClure is here. Where is he? Bach? Yes. From the county. He is actually the stormwater program administrator. So I got wind of this whole area. This is where I really needed the map. And
I brought one, but it's not big enough for anybody to see.
Right. And is there a map on the back of this? Okay, well, we can kind of point it out here. So if you look at the handout you got on the map, the Cocoa Conservation Area is right, it's right off the map, really. But the area that we're talking about is just north. And this is the area between 524 and Michigan and Range Road. Okay. A lot of it is wetlands. And we have the opportunity, because it has been cut off by development in 524 and 528. It's been cut off from its natural hydrology. So Mud Lake, which used to be pretty big, has now shrunk down quite a bit. So the county has approached us with a project that could, as we'd like to talk about, really serve that triple bottom line. You take something that is environmentally good, that is socially good, that economically makes sense to provide an asset for the community. And do you want to talk a little bit more about it? I wanted to put this on your radar screen, okay? We're going to be talking about this more in the next year or so.
So the area that the conservation area, is in, along with Mud Lake, was decades ago. Sorry. Is it picking up now? Okay.
It's correct.
Yeah, okay, that works. So Mud Lake and the conservation area were decades ago cut off by a flood control berm going diagonally off of the bend and range road. And there were control culverts and control structures in there. They fell into disrepair and basically it now free flows out. And the flow in this area, I'm with the stormwater section, so I'm concerned about flooding and where all this water is going. It goes south and it goes west and eventually ends up going under 95 and out to the St. Johns River. As many of you may remember from the newspaper reports from Faye and Irma and Erin, if you've been around here that long, there's many areas south and west of here that go underwater during those big events, and they take forever for the water levels to go down. One of the places that is that water is coming from is the Mud Lake Marsh section. So the idea on the project that we're proposing, and we've got a grant from FEMA to come in and do the modeling and the design, is to reestablish that control structure and basically hold the water during a big flood event and let it go out slowly, which we can adjust the elevations to make the marsh more productive and more like a natural habitat system. And it will also help reduce the flooding downstream. There are caveats and provisos and all that mumbly junk, but basically we're trying to keep people downstream from having to deal with flooding as often. There will be times when it doesn't matter what we do, they're still going to have flooding problems, but this will be a big help. I was trying to think of an illustration. You can think of this sort of like, you've got a 5-gallon jug on your water cooler. Right now, getting water out of Mud Lake is like taking the jug off the water cooler and turning it off upside down over your head. What we want to do is put it back on the water cooler with the control. So they say the amount of water that's coming out of the area will stay the same. But how fast it's coming out of the area will get reduced, and that will help the people downstream from getting quite as wet.
And all I was going to say was when I heard about the project, I saw the opportunity for it also to be that this could work two ways, not only as a floodwater management asset, but it could be passive recreation, trails and another way for people to access and enjoy nature and cocoa.
Okay. So part of the problem is if we make the water level in the Mud Lake too high, we start flooding the people around it. So depending on how much land the city and the county end up owning or conservation areas that we can get control of, we may or may not have to put some berms around the edges of the property to keep from flooding the neighbors when we stack the water up. If we do that, we're going to be making these nice little levees that will then become perfect trails for the passive recreation, the cross-country runners, those sorts of folks. So it turns into a win-win that the federal government really likes to see too. So hopefully we'll end up with a fair number of. Yes, sir.
Do you plan on demucking Mud Lake?
That is not something that we're looking at this point. If that became an issue with the Water Management District, we're going to have to go through permitting with Army Corps of Engineers and the Water Management District on this. If that if the water quality in Mud Lake becomes an issue where we need to do something, it's something we could look at. I would hope that we could end up with FEMA funding to do that if we're required to, because it's not cheap. So, Yes, ma'am.
Sir.
Oh, sorry. I'm.
You don't need to worry about it.
Last.
My question is, how much of that wetlands, it's already being reduced due to the new development along 524 along that southeast side of the road? How much more is going to be allowed to be taken up and really impact that conservation?
And then we'll do the museum next, okay? Museum next.
For any new development, the process is the same for the existing ones, so they evaluate the wetlands on the property, they determine the quality of the wetland, then they go through the water management district. They can either mitigate them, which they pay into a fund, and then they basically preserve wetlands at another location, or they design around them. The areas within the city-owned conservation areas, those wouldn't be impacted by future development. Those are city property at this point.
And not gonna be developed on, is that what you're saying?
Yes, within the conservation area. There's covenants through the district that preserve the areas.
Okay, great.
Yeah, one question. After sitting through several plan reviews at council meetings for wetland management, I'm a little confused because I've heard the environmental concerns contradict themselves. On a development, and this is just a general question, on a development, they must maintain their stormwater runoff at the 100-year flood mark or lower. So in other words, say like the James Road subdivision. I heard
It's changing. And we know if we go to, and this is the most conservative estimate, if we go to 1 degree Celsius, we get a 7% enhancement of the hydrologic cycle. 7% less rain, 7% more rain. That may not seem like a big number, but it can be devastating. So stormwater management is something that we really need to be on top of. And I feel, Brocco does have some plans in place. So we are really watching that. And of course, one of my goals is to become more storm prepared. So, yeah, good point. Yes.
We have a street right over here in Cambridge, and every time it rains, you don't have to rain very much at all, and the whole corner street floods. Yeah, I mean knee deep. It's and we can't figure out why is that. We have two drain. I mean, too large.
Cambridge is really.
But Cambridge, yeah, it's right over there off
Oh,
the
yeah.
tape where the school is.
And I know the area you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, right there where Cambridge meets, what's that street there?
And for a lot of the older developments.
Floods like, I mean, it don't have to rain, but maybe 20 minutes and the car can't drive through there. And what causes that?
Well, for many of the older developments, when they were built, the type of stormwater measures that they put in just aren't adequate now. Or they put in, say, ditches or.
Well, I know my neighbor built an illegal driveway.
Well, that probably affects it.
I mean, I know, because I've got the city about it.
assessment.
You know, so, I mean, I know, aren't you supposed to have so much land per not land, like cement or whatever?
Yes, in fact, well, we do have, you actually pay your stormwater assessment based on how much impervious surface you have, so.
Right, because I mean, if I cement my whole lot,
Yeah.
man, it's gonna
That's gonna
flood
be
the
a
whole
problem for
neighborhood.
everybody else.
You
And that's
know,
one
so
of the
that's what I'm
things that
concerned
a
about.
lot of cities are doing is they're, and actually up north in particular, where they're actually looking at when a lot becomes available, when land becomes available, and it is the type of soil that will absorb stormwater, buying it up, making it a park so that, you know, it's available for recreation, but also available to protect us in a storm.
Yeah, 'cause I
That
mean,
is
that
going
is
into our
getting kind of
long-term
dangerous.
planning. And I think that, you know, our stormwater plan addresses some of that. Not all of it, it's not perfect, it needs work, but, yeah. But we should look at that specifically, and I will make note of that. Bob, do you think we're done? Anything else?
Yeah, it's a yearly, I mean, I've been there almost 10 years and it's flooded, they said, it's been 40 years that it's always flooded there,
So I just wanted to let everybody know, I mean, the Mud Lake project isn't the only one we've got going in the area. We also have, the state has opened up a grant process for a lot of the area south and west of Mud Lake. We put in a grant for a lot of that area. And we'll be finding out if we get the money to move ahead with that project. I mean, we've done some stuff over on Cox Road and down on A Lane and those sort of areas. We've got other projects that were recommended as a result of a study that we paid for a few years back, and we're trying to get the money to try and move ahead with those projects as well.
Thank you, Bob. And again, I wanted to give everybody a heads up so that, you know, we're all involved and looking at this, okay? Hey, the museum. As you may know, the museum was handed to us by the Florida Historical Society. We have a nonprofit group that has come forward. Phyllis, are you the chair of that board? Is that how I can introduce you? Phyllis McCosco will give us an update on that. And then I believe we have the septic to sewer, and Jack will update us, and then we'll get to hear from our new chief. That would be the highlight. If you haven't met him.
Hi, my name is Phyllis Moscoso. I'm the
Go ahead.
treasurer of Brevard Museum Sciences Center, Inc. We actually are community-based. Most of us who are currently involved in the museum live in College Green, right around the corner from the museum. Currently, we have our nonprofit status. Back in August, we're currently working with the city to take over the museum as operators and get a lease in place. Latest is that Bryant Smith, I'm going to send him a little summary of the items that we are talking about as far as with the new revision of the lease we just received, some other items to address, and hopefully we'll have a meeting with him and the appropriate staff sometime real soon. I don't know what else you want to say.
Okay.
Or
I know you were going to do some fundraising, but you don't have any dates right now.
well, we wanted to do a re-grand opening celebration with the city October 23rd, but the lease is taking a little bit longer to get in place.
Okay.
So whoever is interested in knowing about it, if you go to the website, you could go to the https with the colon, the 2 slashes, brevard-museum.com or brevardmuseum.com or brevardmuseum.org. Get to the website, hit the contact us, and send an email if you're interested in volunteering. If you want to participate, get on our constant contact list, for future events. We're also discussing, when the lease is in place, to do something at the museum for a December type exhibit during that month. That's about it, really.
I just want to say, this woman, as well as Greg, I don't know where he went to, and a number of other volunteers
Yes.
have put in hundreds of hours on this, trying to save the museum and reimagining it. And I hope we as a community can give them our support. And thank you so much for being here. Jack Walsh is our utilities director. We have a septic to sewer project coming up along Indian River Drive. The Save Our Indian River Lagoon half-cent sales tax, of which I'm an original member of that board, and I still sit on that advisory. We are about to use some of those funds in Cocoa. So Jack will explain where the design is and where we go from here.
Hi, I'm Jack Walsh. I'm the Utilities Director for the City of Cocoa. I think it was, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, those of you who came to the community meeting regarding the Indian River Drive project, we had a meeting at the library where we kind of went over some preliminary design and layout for this particular project. It extends essentially for the folks, most of the folks along Indian River Drive who don't currently have sewer. It's not every single property, but it is a good portion of them. So we solicited, we did some surveys just to gauge people's interest. We pulled the trigger on the design, so that was underway. Our final design should be done sometime in early December this year. We're somewhere, at the 90+% at this point. And so what we really are seeking is there are significant costs associated with this particular project. The Save Our Indian River Lagoon project that Councilwoman Koss just mentioned is looking, we've just petitioned them to pick up what we hope would be about $5.4 million at most if every single person, that's about 97 homes along there, were to participate. So if the participation rate is lower, then we don't get as much reimbursement because it's proportional to everybody who connects. If they don't connect, we don't get credit, we don't get reimbursement for that. That being said, the other big challenge associated with this project is a rising cost of construction. The 60% cost estimate that came in was extremely high. It was higher than the allotted funding by Save Our Indian River Lagoon. And so we are looking and trying to seek funding so that we can attempt to try to provide that service without impact to the customer. That's the ultimate goal. Not sure if we'll make that, but there are significant dollars that are opening up right now in different forms, through DEP, through the Water Management District, through a lot of different areas. So there are definitely opportunities. The best thing that I think that we have going for us is that we have nearly 100% design, because almost all of these type agencies love to have shovel-ready projects, meaning the design is done and we're ready to put something in the ground. So like I said, December is when we kind of will officially close the design at that point. I would imagine we also have our website under construction, unfortunately. So right now we don't have a lot of good information on our capital program. We have to change our web provider. We're going to be doing it internal. So we had some design meetings to bring our capital program up to date for anybody who visits the utilities portion of the COCO website. If you go there now, it'll just say page under construction. But in the next couple of weeks, we should have that back. And I will begin to try to put more detail, especially about that project, about the different addresses. I might even get a spreadsheet together so that you can just look it up and see if you are included in that area.
And so the addresses that you are not able to hook up to the sewer, they are able to get upgrade to performance-based septics?
Yeah,
under the plan.
Yeah, the Save Our Indian River Lagoon plan, it's pretty extensive, and there's actually 3 or 4 different ways that you can get credit. One of them is converting from septic to a gravity sewer collection system that a city agency like you can provide. Another way is to do what they call like an enhanced septic treatment, and I believe I think there's actually a couple of different ones that they propose, but one of them is an aerobic system where you have a closed well that you basically drive oxygen inside, and then the natural bacteria in the wastewater cleans itself, and you get like gray water that comes out the other side. That's very useful. They also have enhancements on the downstream side that would potentially be your drain field. They have ways that they can also minimize what would eventually get into the groundwater and eventually potentially get into the actual Indian River Lagoon itself. And those are all kind of outlined on the Save Our Indian River Lagoon website, and they're extremely large study, but there are a couple of components in there that give some folks some options.
Yeah, and so the traditional septic is actually, manages, I think it's at 30%, the nutrients, the nitrogen and phosphorus, versus the performance-based system that are at 85%. So the plan is reimbursing those. Again, and he said, well, depending on how much participation we get, well, if you get the opportunity to hook up under this plan, this is at least a $20,000 value, and it is a first come, first serve. I'm sitting on that committee, I'm watching these projects come in, and it's first come, first serve, and the costs are going up. So everyone's going to want to look into this and sign up.
So the page is under construction, where do we find out if we're included in this plan?
And
Yeah.
first of all, Cindy and Pete actually live on the piece that is at the very end on McFarland. So right now, they're not included in that.
Yeah, I'll try to get a full listing of addresses and get that posted just so people know who's eligible.
So if we're not currently included and we're right where it stops, can we just go dig a little further and shovel?
Well, that was the whole idea of doing the engineering. If you know that area, right when you get towards north of McFarland Park, where McFarland comes back in, you start heading downhill. And that's right where the limit of where we can go with the most shallow sewer to serve as many customers. That's right where we run out of really earth. We can't go any further out of the ground because our sewer is already too shallow at that point.
We're actually at the highest place on.
We're at a high point. We have all the skateboarders.
Yeah. And I was going to say, Dr. Otero, who is also sits on our sustainability board. She's a pediatrician. They have questions.
Right now, in order to be one of those first come, first served. Is there something we should be doing?
Well, until we have
Until we accept the
final
money from
design.
Brocco. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
to accept the contract and the money from Brocco.
Yeah, but we definitely want to be proactive in doing that. The governor just released $150 million that's going to these projects that are currently under construction. And I'm just hopeful that whatever you feel about him, he's been pretty good on water projects. I'm hopeful that that will continue next year, and then that might impact us. That might help us. But there's also money from St. John's. And as far as the half-cent sales tax go, that is a 10-year plan that was designed to bring in, it's, what was it, 400 million? Or was originally, was it 400 originally?
Yeah, it's about 41 million a year.
Yeah. Well, it's actually bringing in more than that. So we thought we were going to get a big hit in COVID. Turned out the taxes, the sales tax came in higher. So, yeah. So these are a priority. We are in the plan. That means we have a certain amount of funding guaranteed,
So.
locked in. Yes, Peter.
We want to make sure we understand what we need to do to be included in this. Like, I do understand that it's low at the south end of where McFarland hits Indian River, but it's higher on the north end. You know, the reality is, when you hear people talking about the water quality in the Indian River Lagoon, the first comment everybody makes is the septic systems along that river, along that road. You know, it's like, and I agree, it's a big deal. You know, when we replaced a septic system, I don't know how many years back now, it was a real challenge. And it's not going to get any better.
And Jack,
we need to know what we can do to ensure we and everybody along that river, along the river, can be included in the septic enhancement process.
Thank you. Jack, is this the only area that is on septic? Is the only remaining area, or I know in the unincorporated areas?
It's the only area within the designated Sable Indian River Lagoon area that we can get credit for. We have septic throughout the city. As you move further away, the impact, to the Indian River Lagoon is questionable at best. Meaning it gets into groundwater, but it could take 1,000 years for it to get from your house, if it even goes in that direction, because we don't necessarily know all of the groundwater hydrology and how water flows on the ground. But there is an assumption that, of course, the houses and the folks along Indian River Lagoon, I think it's within 200 feet or 150 feet, whatever that original designation was, were designated as a priority project, and for every city along Indian River or along Indian River Drive, basically any drive all the way up and down the river, they tried to designate those areas for priority funding, and we were areas J and K were the two zones that were designated, and that's how we were able to get the additional funding.
Okay, great. And we had a hand up over there.
With all the new development going on, how much longer can your plant on US 1 handle it, and when will you need a larger facility?
Our plant is about half capacity right now, so I don't see any of that as a problem for us. We're running about 2.1 million gallons per day, and we have the permanent capacity of 4.5. So we're good.
Good question.
Just
Gary.
to follow up on the septic project. So, timing of construction, I think it's great that your design is nearly complete, but what are the obstacles to actually make the project a go? I think 8 months ago at the library, it wasn't budgetary.
Right.
Is it
Right.
the budget's done, or is it just the rising cost?
Unfortunately, the story has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot of mixed messages at different levels. That happens. Yeah. So the last message we got a year or so ago was that we could get every cost, homeowner cost, construction cost, whatever it was. So we pulled the trigger. We got a consultant, we did the surveying, we're doing the design, we're completing that no matter what. I just had a meeting less than a month ago, with committee members from Save Our Indian River Lagoon, the managers, and they told me that only the designated costs would be, now the allocation went up, so our original allocation was 4.3 million. It went up to 5.4, assuming everybody would connect. That's the 97 people that we can physically serve through the engineering that we've determined. The original project had designated somehow 130 lots. I think they might have counted lots on both sides when there was a single lot. There's a little bit of a discrepancy in the total, but they will only reimburse you for what you get for every new septic system that's taken off. We get one unit of credit. Okay. So the bigger challenge today now is what they've told me is, like they told me that they weren't going to cover homeowner costs. I'm hearing different stories at that point, but that's a small cost relative to the cost of doing construction on Indian River Drive, because it's nearly all coquina rock. And the reasons why there's no septic there today is because it's extraordinarily expensive to dig and drill through basically what is essentially coquina, which is like concrete. Okay, that's why the costs are anywhere between $6 and $8 million for the system that we're talking about today to serve roughly 97 or 100 people. It's extremely expensive, and it's above even what, and I think Save Our Indian River Lagoon, they did a allocation based on phosphorus and nitrogen removal. That's how they came up with like what they would allocate. So I'm taking that allocation, which they just raised, so thank you, and I'm multiplying that by the 97 potential houses that we can serve, and I get 5.4 million. Now, that's if everybody contributes. If only 80 people apply and gets, then my number of reimbursement goes down and costs go up for the city. So what we are seeking, I think the answer to your question is that we have to have enough grants and other matches to defer that, either get it off, so because obviously we don't want to pass that along to the homeowners as much as possible, but we want to make sure that that cost is reasonable relative to the revenues that we bring in, relative to the wastewater, which is small, and to its capital plan that we do each year. So it has to be within reason. So we are seeking that offsetting cost, and when we get that, we'll have the plans ready to go, and we'll be able to move forward.
Okay, and I'll just add to that everyone that has signed up has gotten reimbursed so far. Okay, a lot of unknowns here, obviously. We're kind of in an inflationary environment, but so far, everyone that signed up has gotten reimbursed. In fact, we have certified a couple of plumbers, so that work can be done directly through them, so you don't even have to write the check. They just come in and the county, the half-cent sales tax reimburses. So, again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, don't leave, now the highlight of the evening. Yes.
One thing I was remiss of saying when I got the stage right up there was, on September 28th, the City of Cocoa Council did approve $70,000 to be allocated for the first year to the museum, and we definitely appreciate their support.
Yeah, I was saying, the big highlight of the evening is we have a new police chief. And I know that some of you have commented to me that you see things changing. Like we see more monitoring going on in the neighborhood, and particularly, concerned to me, accidents and people speeding, that we're actually, you guys better be careful. I caught myself speeding today. Gotta slow down or he's gonna get you. There you go. Chief Evander Collier, the third or the fourth?
I guess my dad took over.
The fourth.
I'm the fourth. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. So I know y'all, I don't need this mic. And that camera, I don't want to be on camera either. So, listen, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. She wanted to save the best for last. I figured I'd wake everybody up, and I saw a few people here nodding. I won't call you out, but if I see you get up walking out, I'm going to snitch on you. Never got no snitching thing when I'm snitching. Listen, I'm Evander Collier the fourth. To make it real short, because she only gave me an hour, so I don't know if I can. But hey, crime is down in your community. All right, it's down. Now, for the whole city, we almost down for the whole year, and that's our goal. So we're doing a lot of things in the police department now so that we can have a huge reduction in crime. So we are heading in the right direction. So I don't want to bore you with all the details. Who has not met me yet? That way, I don't know if I'm going to save some of the best for last. Who has not met me? Go ahead. The mayor always wanted to hear my story. So just right quick, real brief. Evander Collier IV. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. Went to college, University of Florida. Any Gator fans in here? Any Florida State fans, secondary school? Okay, we got one. It's okay. Anyway, University of Florida. So after graduating, I went back home and became a police officer in Jacksonville, Florida, at Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Worked there about 31 years. Moved up to his highest rank as an assistant chief. What that means is this, that I had a responsibility of the side of town that had about 250, 300,000 residents. And I did work through about 170, 80 people. That includes commanders, lieutenants, sergeants, officers, the whole 9 yards. So I had a lot of responsibility throughout my career. So after 31 years, I retired. And I was sitting home and I said, I saw an opportunity came up in the city of Cocoa. So I read the requirements. And I said, that kind of meets my personality. Now, true story. So I kept that flyer that I applied on. And I actually was looking at that flyer today to make sure that what I said I was going to do, that I'm doing. That I did not just throw stuff out there to see what was going to stick. And so that input came from the police department, the citizens, of what they wanted their next police chief to be. So I applied, and we went through about 4 or 5 different steps. We had about 85 candidates, and ultimately, I came out number 1. That's why I'm here today. So with that being said, see, I already know because my experience in Jacksonville, anybody from Jacksonville, Florida? Okay, just Britain, it's a small town. About 150. She must be my neighbor, so I'm not gonna say what she's saying. But anyway, about 1.5 million people, include some of the surrounding areas. So to give you perspective about what large community that I came from. So I'm bringing all those talents and skills that I learned throughout my 31 years here. So I know it's a culture shock, maybe for some residents. I know for the police department. All right, and I have some of my police personnel back here right now. I'm going to introduce them in just a second, kind of let you know kind of what some great work that they're doing. We just started a new unit they're a part of. They're doing a fantastic job. We'll talk about that in just a second. So with that being said, so I already know in police in 31 years, You cannot arrest your way out of the situation. We have to have community involvement. We have to be engaged with the community. We have to be there every step. And I'm sure you probably already heard that I've been walking these neighborhoods. Anybody heard about me walking neighborhoods, knocking on doors? Okay, well, if you haven't, I'll be in your neighborhood. We just need to get your name and address.
Yeah, we need to go.
All right, we're gonna walk the whole city at some point. But I just did a walk yesterday, and I'm here tonight, and I'm doing a walk tomorrow. So I stay pretty busy. I have a pretty busy schedule.
You just want to get your steps in.
That's true. So I still got another comedian here. You don't steal my show.
Sorry, Chief.
Okay, no. So at any rate, so part of my plan was to make sure that we have a very strong community engagement, not only for life for the police department, but a unit that we have. So with that being said, we just created our community engagement unit, which we have Sergeant Stevenson right there. Raise your hand, Sergeant Stevenson. We have Corporal Pierre. Officer Pierre Johnson. And Officer Hathaway. Y'all may know Commander Hathaway. He also has the dog, Copper. Not Junie. Copper. Smells bad. All right. So these guys are doing a fantastic job. As a matter of fact, once the word got out that we had created this unit, I need to get more police officers because their schedule has just gotten going crazy. And that's what we want. We want people to be calling for us to come out in different community venues because we have to foster those positive relationships. And so with that being said, their schedule is jam tight. So I wanted y'all to be familiar with them because they're actually doing a fantastic job already. We get a lot of positive feedback from what these guys and ladies are doing. And I just want y'all to give them another round of applause for working together. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue. We're going to have to grow them as well. We got to grow the unit. Okay? And so when you start talking about growing, we got all these new communities coming in, right? So what does that mean? What we need one what? We like to have police officers on board, right? So I've been hearing people say, well, you got your city council people here and all that, so yes, y'all do. That's a hint. At some point, we need to grow this unit. We're gonna have to grow it. And we're gonna need your support with that. And you can't go out cheap either. Because let me tell you something, I come from a community, when I was in Jacksonville tried to go cheap. I'm telling you, they tried to go cheap, and we lost so many police officers, it was ridiculous. Too many. We have to have competitive wages. You have to. No matter how you try to write it up, dress it up, or whatever, you're competing with other police departments in this community, in this area, and maybe another 100, 200 miles away. So we have to make sure that we're giving these officers a fair wage so we can keep them here. We have to make sure that we have communities coming here so that these officers feel like, okay, I feel pretty safe to live over here because these officers cannot afford to live over there anywhere. They cannot afford to go and live in some of these other communities because it just costs entirely too much on their salaries. So we have to be realistic. We want these officers here, but we have to make sure that we have communities that they can afford, which you kind of mentioned that, because that's very important. So my idea with this police department, so some of the things I bring accountability. They'll tell you I'm holding myself accountable just as well as I hold my entire team accountable. And the reason why I brag and talk about the things we're doing, because I want to remind you what I'm doing, because if I'm not doing it, I want you to hold me accountable. So I don't tell you what we're doing to brag about it. I tell you about it so that you can say, hey, Chief, you remember you said you're going to do this, you haven't done it. My word is bond. If I tell you want to do something, we're going to do it. I'm not one of those people that will tell you something and not do it. Anybody been in a situation like that? Somebody, a police officer, a police person, that says, oh, we take care of that, they never do anything? That's not going to happen. Now, you might get upset with me when I tell you that we're not going to do anything with that. But that's just me being honest. I don't want to just dangle a carrot out there and it's not the truth. I would never do that. I'm going to tell you the honest truth, okay? So with that being said, I just want to kind of introduce myself. We are walking these communities. We're making a lot of positive change. Crime is starting to head in the right direction, going down. I'm I'm predicting based on our numbers that we should have a reduction in crime this year. We already see a reduction in traffic fatalities and traffic crashes. Reason for that, but because these officers like that, they're out there doing, we're writing more traffic warnings and our citations, because we don't just like write citations, paying citations, we do write written warnings, because our goal is to educate the community. So we're doing a lot more traffic enforcement, and so we're seeing the benefit of that, because our traffic crash and traffic fatalities is going down. So these officers are actually being very, very proactive, because I really push that, okay? Being proactive, being out there in the community, talking to you. Okay, so with that being said, I'll open the floor for a couple of questions, and then I'm gonna close because I know we got to get out of here. Yes, sir. I need your name and what y'all said, Councilman, name and address. No, I'm just kidding, sir. Go ahead. I can't hear you. Go ahead.
My concern is, I don't know if it's because I'm going out more to doctor's appointments or whatever, but I've been seeing more people run red lights, especially.
That's how I got hit.
Michigan and US 1.
Y'all write that down. Michigan, US 1, they run lights?
Sometimes it's 2 or 3 of them run through.
What time?
All times.
24 hours a day.
Yeah. And
Michigan
that's where I
and
was
US
hit,
1?
and
All
it's
right,
one of.
y'all got it? We'll take care of that.
US 1 in Dixon.
All right, US 1 Dixon, they write it down.
That corridor is one of the worst in the county. I've seen the heat maps.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Right in the back. Yes.
Yes, my name is Lynette Daniels, and I live over in the University Lane area, where there's 3 condo complexes back there, and we get hit by people, young people, breaking cars. And I have a camera
She's the one
that
that
I'm
sent
always
that video.
calling, but y'all can't never catch it.
Now, is that the one that I got here?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you the individual that saw these kids in the community and you filmed that? It was on your camera?
Yep.
Those kids were arrested.
Oh, they were.
Yes, in
Not
Rockland.
all of them, there's some more. There's
Yeah, we got,
Jumping
a few of those kids were arrested in Rockland, and we appreciate the video, and we're looking for more.
Yeah, because they're coming through there weekly.
Yes, ma'am.
We still got some coming through there weekly.
What time of night?
You talking about from 11 till about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, all right, we'll pass that on. We'll make sure we address that. Yes, sir.
Larry,
Address?
does the Cocoa Police Department have training for dealing with people with mental health issues or substance abuse issues? I mean, do our officers do training to respond to people who have mental health or substance abuse
Yes.
problems?
Yes, and we train on that on the regular.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
They have to take extra classes.
No, it's something we do in-house. Sometimes we do training on video that we get from the agencies. So we have a number of ways to do training.
Because that's, you guys come up to a home and you have to be the mediators, the psychiatrists.
Social worker too.
Yes, social worker. I really believe that we should also give you extra money for training for those officers so that they can handle it in a good way.
Or we could get that money to other social organizations.
But
I can't hear you, man, with that mask on. I'm sorry.
but we train on that on a regular, because we have to recognize that. So they are trained on that. They know how to effectively deal with that. So yes, ma'am. Okay, just yes, sir.
You made a little speech about the number of police officers required or whatever. I don't know how many police officers there are in the city of Cocoa, but do you feel that we are adequately covered or we are low?
I'm still working on those numbers because I'm still taking a look at how we are deploying our officers and looking at what the crime index looks like. So I'm still constantly evaluating that to answer your question. But based on my prediction, the numbers that I see, I think at some point moving forward that we will need additional police positions.
right now you feel you're adequate with what you got?
If I can fill all my vacancies right now, I still have a few vacancies that we're trying to fill. So we have a lot of interviews going on now. We're going to look at putting some officers through the police academy. But at some point, I think that's going to be something we'll be asking for. Yes, sir.
Chief, I was wondering if you could talk about some of the plans and strategies that you have in place from a police perspective on cleaning up our parks and protecting some of the future investments that we're making in the parks.
So to answer that, I don't know if you noticed, when I got here, Provost Park, there was a lot of issues going on at Provost Park. We sent out a message to our officers and supervisors how to effectively address those situations. So the people that were hanging out, that were actually causing problems, they were cooperative. You don't necessarily see the influx of people that are just hanging out there. Because I understand the importance of giving that park back to the kids. I mean, you go on some weekend, you see kids out there having a good time. I mean, that's what those parks are for. At the same time, you do have adults. They're not necessarily causing any problem. They go up there to socialize. You got someone retired, the whole 9 yards. So, the officers have to know how to navigate through that. But we've also gone up there, we made some arrests on drugs and things of that nature too. So we have to make sure we're creating that balance when we're going in those particular parks. And those officers are fully aware of that. We talk about those things. So that's some of the things we're doing, being proactive in those parks. The community walks is important. It's some of the things we're doing. We also do that I have not talked much about was every month I have what we call a crimes meeting. And what a crime meeting is this: I have all my commanders. I have a lieutenant that's responsible for every district, as well as my community engagement unit, my detective division. We all have a meeting, and we have a screen like this. We're looking at maps, what crimes are occurring, and we're talking about strategies and what we're doing to address the problem. And because we are now looking at them on a regular and talking about them, we're now able to be more proactive, and that's part of the reason why crime is going down. That's something that's never been done here before. But we did that in Jacksonville, so I brought that here. We have good meetings that we have all the time. So at some point, as we continue to grow those meetings, we're going to open up to certain individuals in the community. When I say certain, obviously I can't invite everybody to come to those. But at least you can come and get a feel for exactly what's going on with your police department. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We're 10 minutes over, so let's take 2 more questions.
Y'all heard it, right? The boss.
I have a statement and a question. My first statement is, I have unfortunately had to call your department on several occasions, and I want to thank you for the less than 3-minute response time.
Thank you.
Less than 3 minutes. My question is, may I please invite you, your staff, your whoever's to my neighborhood between 6 and 7:15 in the morning. You can catch every single person in the vehicle flying through every stop sign, over every speed bump, through every speed dip. I mean flying. We're talking 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour.
Which neighborhood are you in?
In Pine Ridge, behind.
Cocoa Hills. We had a meeting there.
Is that where I had that? Is that where I did that?
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But we'll take care of that as well.
Yeah.
All right,
It's
one
a
last
real
question.
problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Can you say a few words
Oh, we have-
about, can you say a few words about police de-escalation training and the police advisory board? Just let us know what the policies are, how you're keeping, training officers on de-escalation so that we don't have any more of the issues that have occurred in Cocoa. Do you have something that the police are doing?
We are doing de-escalation training already. We just sent an officer that did an advanced training a couple of months ago, but now we're putting a curriculum together where we're going to be training every officer even more about de-escalation, but that is very important. And one of the philosophies I have for the officers and my team is that just because you can don't mean you should. That's a big philosophy. Because you can don't mean you should. So that's a big thing as well. So we are training. As far as the advisory board, we meet every quarter. I know that there was some issues about who was notified, who was not notified in the last meeting that we had. Not the last one, but the meeting before then. And when I recognized that, I made sure that all the entities that were supposed to be at that advisory meeting were notified. And so we scheduled another meeting like the following week. And once again, we did not have a quorum. So the people that are on those boards are not showing up. So, but I'm having my officers, my team there, an hour or so, whatever, people are not showing up. So, we're gonna still do our part. We're gonna present the cases. We'll let them evaluate those cases because we want to be transparent. But if nobody's there to discuss it, there's nothing we can do about that. I want to thank y'all. I see y'all in the top.
And I want to add just a couple of things. Who is on the new Citizen Academy? Is anybody here signed up for the Citizen Academy? Oh, we got one person, good. Well, the Citizen Academy is an opportunity these are programs we've been doing for like a year and a half now. We have a couple classes through them. They give you background on what's going on in all the different departments. You get a better idea of how we're dealing with things, puts you in a position, empowers you so that you can act as a collaborator with us sitting on the console. And I'm really excited about the program. It has just generated a lot more public involvement and people signing up for our boards. I certainly wish I had had that training before coming on console, but you have the opportunity. We have a class that just started, so we'll be making announcements probably in the spring or summer when we start another class, something to keep on your radar screen. Also, anybody here sitting on a committee or a board? Yeah, please stand up. Wesley, stand up. Jennifer, you know what? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making Cocoa a better place to live, for being involved, for participating. Yes?
I'm sorry, I'm not on no committee, I'm just a resident here of Cocoa.
That's okay.
You know, when I could get this in. We have been, I'm with her living over in Auburn University.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna be growing and getting all these apartments coming in, and more people coming in, we need to do some more lighting on Clear Lake Road all the way down to 520 and on Michigan. The street lights are terrible, they are so dim, they're dark. I mean, I go to work on 520, go down to Clear Lake to 520 at 6:30 in the morning, and I see people that are trying to cross the road. Granted, they're not in reflective shirts or whatever, but we need to get the city, get Florida Power and Light to get these streets lit up, especially if we're going to be getting more apartments coming.
Well, the lighting and traffic control are really important because I just was looking at some statistics. If you live in Cocoa, we have 1 in 1,000 chance of being in a serious accident or becoming a fatality. So I know the chief is on this. I know, and I hope we're all going to really be looking at, I know that Brian's looking at how to calm down some of our roads, but it's a serious issue, so I want everybody to be really careful going home tonight. And why don't, this issue, any other issue, please come up, put it on the board, and I promise you we will follow up. I've got my cards up here. Also, Saturday, November 13th, 1 o'clock, I will be at the museum, at the pavilion, so we can discuss more of these issues. And hey, applause